You imagine owning a power station that hums steadily, day and night. Baseload electricity leaves your plant every second, feeding cities without fuss. Households, hospitals, rail lines, and data centers depend on your reliable output. You picture predictable revenue every hour, tied to long contracts and regulation. No need to chase weather or peak prices, just disciplined, engineered uptime. Your plant looks calm, modern, monumental, and built to last decades. Then you meet the first harsh number attached to that fantasy. Your new nuclear plant costs tens of billions before generating one electron. Hinkley Point C now projects roughly $48 billion in outturn money. Its contract for difference strike price began at $92.50 in 2012. Indexed, that's today's ballpark near 125 per megawatt hour, give or take. You are starting from nothing, aiming to finance, permit, and build one. You first need a site with cooling water, seismic stability, and grid access. Licenses, environmental permits, and a nuclear site license come before concrete. You commit money long before revenue for a very long time. Time is your second expensive ingredient, not just steel and concrete. You choose a proven design with detailed supply chains and safety cases. You'll itemize risks, design changes, supply bottlenecks, inflation, and delays. Financing requires partners who stomach long horizons and construction uncertainty. The dream hasn't vanished. It just costs staggering sums to attempt. So what exactly are you trying to buy and why is it different? Open the door to the main asset and its demanding economics. You're buying controlled fission, heavy safety, and decades of regulated operation. Your core asset is the reactor island, turbine hall, and supporting systems. Water comes from the sea or river, circulating heat to giant steam turbines. Fuel arrives as enriched uranium assemblies, carefully fabricated to exacting tolerances. Each assembly is expensive, but it powers months of continuous operation. Containment holds severe accidents in mind, demanding concrete, steel, and verification. Nuclear assets are layered with redundancy. One system backs another relentlessly. Your spare parts inventory is costly because reliability is deliberately engineered. The turbine converts heat to megawatts. It's vast, tuned, and precious. Operators oversee stability, maneuver power, and keep within strict technical specifications. The asset's magic is high uptime, low fuel volume, steady output. Modern targets often assume around 85 to 90% capacity factors achievable. Design lifetime can stretch 60 years, spreading costs over huge production. One pellet packs remarkable energy density, reducing storage and logistics complexity. But the hardware is bespoke, gigantic, and slow to manufacture or ship. Special transport and lifts create planning puzzles and expensive mobilization windows. Your asset includes protection against sabotage, cyber threats, and material diversion. The availability you sell depends on construction quality and disciplined maintenance practices. You must keep primary boundaries intact, at pressure and temperature, always. Your asset also includes safe interim storage for spent fuel on site. Eventually, a geological disposal facility is expected to take high-level waste. Economically, capital dominates, while fuel and operations are smaller but unforgiving. Quality across the chain determines lifetime reliability and margin for error. Next, how do you prepare that empty ground to start becoming nuclear? You start with surveys, geotechnical cores, flood risk, and seismic characterization. You'll map emergency arrangements with local authorities and national responders. Construction needs welfare, laydown areas, batching plants, and logistics management. Marine works for intakes and outfalls proceed with environmental mitigations agreed. Deep foundations anchor the heavy containment and turbine structures against settlement. Nuclear-grade concrete demands strict mix control, testing, and documentation trails. Reinforcement density is extreme, ensuring ductility and containment integrity under loads. Security controls begin early, checking deliveries, tooling, and contractor credentials. You book escorted convoys for heavy lift components months, sometimes years ahead. You manage groundwater, waterproofing the base structures to preserve long-term durability. Neighbors will watch. You publish monitoring results and respond to complaints. Grid works progress in parallel, building bays, transformers, and protection systems. Balance of plant equipment arrives staged. Quality control and storage are meticulous. Safety class equipment is handled in controlled areas, tested repeatedly, certified. Interface management tracks hundreds of contractors, sequencing trades to minimize clashes. Regulators witness hold points. You cannot proceed until evidence satisfies conditions. Digital twins help spot clashes, optimize cranes, and predict productivity constraints. Productivity matters. Delays amplify financing costs every month you slip. You embed nuclear safety culture from breaking ground, not just commissioning day. Documentation of every torque, test, and pour builds your plant's pedigree. Those preparations cost hundreds of millions before reactor procurement invoices land. Time to move from groundworks to the critical path components. Let's see the kit you must buy and where the money goes. You place orders for nuclear island equipment with long global lead times. Large forgings require capacity at specialized foundries with booked schedules. Steam generators are critical. Replacement midlife is possible, but disruptive. Pressurizer maintains system pressure. Its reliability underpins thermal margins. Safety pumps and valves undergo factory acceptance before shipment and documentation. Instrumentation and control systems cost significant sums and years of integration. Turbine generator packages are massive capital items and efficiency drivers. Condensers, feed water heaters, and cooling equipment are essential auxiliary pieces. Fuel handling systems require precision and interlock verification before first core load. Emergency diesels and alternate power sources back safety systems through blackouts. Civil components arrive constantly. Supply schedules become the heartbeat of site. Miles of cable, trays, and penetrations consume labor and coordination effort. Grid transformers, breakers, and protections tie you firmly into the network. Supplier diversification reduces risk but increases interface complexity and oversight. Non-conformances must be investigated, judged acceptable, reworked, or rejected entirely. Contract stage payments on milestones, cash flow mirrors progress stubbornly. You negotiate delay damages, but recovery rarely erases schedule harm. Customs paperwork and inspections can stall schedules if documentation misaligns. You buy tools, spares, and calibration gear to sustain early operations. Your procurement line alone runs to many billions, depending on scope. Next, you must fit it all out, verify, and commission every system. Let's see the fit-out, testing, and the licenses you must satisfy. Electrical fit-out is painstaking. Each circuit must be tested, tagged, documented. Piping welds are radiographed. Quality records trace every weld, filler, and welder. Instruments are calibrated, loop-checked, and proven through end-to-end function tests. Control logic is exercised in dry runs before energizing live systems safely. Pre-operational tests verify motor rotations, valve strokes, and interlock responses. System flushing and chemical cleaning remove debris, protecting pumps and heat exchangers. High-purity water loops depend on resins and continuous monitoring from startup. Operators train extensively on simulators to master transients and emergency conditions. The Office for Nuclear Regulation scrutinizes evidence against license conditions hard. Generic design assessment evidence must align with as-built plant realities. Environment Agency checks permits covering discharges, habitats, and thermal plumes. Civil nuclear constabulary and security protocols are validated under rigorous scenarios. Radiation protection plans, dosimetry, and controlled areas are enforced meticulously. Lifting rules are proven before entering critical zones near safety equipment. Grid code tests align your plant's response with system stability requirements. Fuel arrival triggers heightened security and procedures for fresh fuel handling. Fresh fuel inspections confirm specifications before any pool transfer occurs. Hydraulic tests and hydrostatic proofs precede any move toward initial criticality. Initial criticality and low-power physics tests benchmark the core's behavior. Grid synchronization tests follow, gently raising power through formal hold points. Commercial operation date arrives when performance and safety standards are demonstrably achieved. Now you must staff, train, and run the plant as a business. Who do you need and what do they cost daily? You employ licensed reactor operators, shift supervisors, and a control room crew. Initial training pipelines are long. Certification and requalification never really stop. Maintenance teams handle rotating machines, valves, instrumentation, and corrective tasks. Outage planners choreograph refueling and major inspections around supply commitments. Nuclear safety culture relies on open reporting, conservative decisions, and learning. Supply chain coordinators keep spares flowing without drowning in inventory costs. Health physics staff manage dose, surveys, and contamination control daily. Security personnel and systems protect assets, information, and nuclear materials. You invest in apprenticeships and graduates because pipelines must renew continuously. Compliance staff compile reports, prepare inspections, and maintain licensee documentation. Finance tracks operating costs, capital spares, and provisions for decommissioning. Stakeholder engagement sustains your social license alongside legal permissions. You contract specialists for steam turbine overhauls and eddy current tube inspections. Retention matters. Stable teams hold vital tacit knowledge about your plant. Shifts cover 24/7, 4 crews cycling to maintain rest requirements. Salaries are competitive. Specialists command premiums in tight labor markets. Headcount runs into hundreds, plus contractors during outages and upgrades. Continuous improvement meetings collect near misses and embed corrective actions. Teams practice beyond design basis events, rehearsing improbable but possible transients. Industrial relations require trust. Outages strain schedules and tempers if mishandled. Community benefits help anchor goodwill through long construction and operations. Next, where do customers come from and how is your power sold? You'll sell into contracts, frameworks, and sometimes wholesale markets competitively. Your primary customer is often a contract counterparty guaranteeing price certainty. Contract for difference tops up revenue when wholesale prices fall below strike. A RAB model collects during construction, reducing financing costs and risk. Ultimately, consumers fund electricity through bills. Models shift when they pay. Offshore wind bids can be lower but vary by inflation and supply chains. Gas competes on flexibility and price when gas markets are benign. Interconnectors import or export power, arbitraging price and balancing variability. Solar is cheap per unit but cannot meet dark, still winter evenings. Batteries smooth peaks but currently store hours, not seasonal deficits. Nuclear's value is system inertia and dependable megawatt stabilizing frequency. High availability helps negotiate firm contracts valued by industrial customers. Operational emissions are very low. Life cycle steel and cement dominate totals. Your sales narrative stresses predictability in an increasingly volatile market. Hedging aligns production with contracted volumes and shields against price swings. Creditworthiness matters. You vet counterparties to avoid payment risks. Policy shapes demand. Security concerns favor firm domestic generation sources. Social acceptance affects siting. Engagement reduces opposition and planning delays. Choosing a revenue model early shapes financing, partnerships, and risk profile. Revenue arrives steadily. Planned outages cause predictable troughs you must manage. With Hinckley's Index strike, revenue per unit is specified and bankable. Now clarify every revenue stream, including capacity and ancillary services opportunities. Then weigh those pounds against the operating bills that follow relentlessly. Your core revenue is energy sold multiplied by the contract price. At 90% capacity, 3.2 gigawatts produce roughly 25.2 terawatt-hours yearly. At about 125 eyes per megawatt hour, revenue approximates 3.15 billion annually. Frequency response, inertia, and black start can add modest service income. Planned refueling outages reduce revenue. Plans minimize duration and coincidence. Fuel costs are modest per megawatt hour, perhaps around 10 to 15. Operations and maintenance might run $20–30 per megawatt hour, site dependent. You must pay into a funded decommissioning program throughout operating life. Waste management contributions add several pounds per megawatt hour onto costs. Staffing hundreds costs tens of millions each year, rising during outages. Diesel testing and emergency power readiness create recurring but manageable expenses. Chemicals, resins, and water treatment run as steady consumables every month. Contractors swell costs episodically for statutory inspections and major maintenance. Switchyard upkeep and reliability-centered maintenance keep connection dependable. Training costs continue permanently. Regulators expect evidence of competencies refreshed. Cybersecurity tooling and exercises are now core line items under regulation. Specialist insurance, including nuclear liabilities, is required and expensive. Even efficient operations cannot mask capital recovery, and financing dominate economics. After O&M and contributions, significant cash goes to debt service. Margin depends on keeping outages brief, supply chains stable, and inflation controlled. Indexation protects revenue partly, but costs also move with inflation. What else erodes earnings that first-time owners rarely plan for? Hidden rules, inspections, and downtime eat time and money surprisingly quickly. The regulator schedules inspections. Preparing consumes staff weeks before each visit. Containment tests require complex scaffolds, seals, and extended plant conditions. Every lift near safety equipment needs formal plans and independent verification. Some spares expire, requalification or replacement costs accumulate unnoticed. Condition monitoring tools must be purchased, updated, and staff trained. Local traffic limits can throttle deliveries and working hours significantly. Storm delays hit marine works. Recovery may require rework and fresh permits. Critical path slips cascade as teams and cranes wait idly, costing millions. A stuck refueling machine can pause the outage, burning precious schedule. Unexpected degradation mechanisms prompt repairs, analysis, and regulatory reassurance. Dose constraints limit who can enter areas, complicating work sequencing. Cyber drills reveal gaps. Patches and segmentation projects follow, costly and urgent. Contract claims for unknown conditions become protracted, consuming management hours. Community conditions may cap night works or deliveries, reshaping programs. One custom component can cost extraordinary sums and long waits. Standards evolve. You sometimes retest or upgrade to maintain compliance. Biofouling can force cleaning campaigns and protective upgrades to intakes. Information rights require rapid, accurate disclosure. Mishandling invites reputational hits. Airspace and maritime restrictions need continuous enforcement and incident response. Heat rate degradation demands routine cleaning to keep efficiency in megawatts. Spent fuel movements require special teams, equipment, and pre-approved procedures. Your contingency erodes through dozens of necessary compliance-driven tasks. Beyond hidden costs, big risks sit outside your control entirely. You plan, but shocks still happen. Resilience becomes a daily discipline. Extreme weather can halt works, disrupt intakes, and damage temporary facilities. Supply chain disruptions delay components whose substitutes don't exist readily. Materials inflation inflates late-stage procurement bills uncomfortably fast. Fuel supply changes post-geopolitics require flexible contracts and diversified vendors. Low wholesale prices reduce CFD top-up needs but pressure merchant nuclear elsewhere. Recession suppresses demand. Policy can reshape capacity payments and incentives. Turbine blade or rotor faults can remove hundreds of megawatts overnight. System events impose stress tests. Your ride-through and support are mandatory. Design defects discovered elsewhere can trigger inspections and downtime across fleets. Post-incident rules tighten, retrofit programs follow with costs and outages, demographic strain expertise. Knowledge transfer programs must be deliberate. A cross-sector cyber campaign could force conservative plant configurations temporarily. Contractor failure leaves supply gaps and legal wrangles over performance bonds. Rising interest rates raise carrying costs on remaining capital and refinancings. Communication missteps can fuel panic. Trained spokespeople reduce misinformation harms. Creeping degradation requires vigilant discovery before reliability suffers. Pandemics or health scares complicate staffing and planned outage densities drastically. Security incidents disrupt operations even when they end harmlessly after engagement. Fiscal changes alter levies, business rates, and allowable returns on investment. Sector cooperation mitigates shared risks. Learning exchanges improve resilience. Let's ground this with a real project and its lessons. Hinkley Point C tells an exacting story about costs, schedules, and contracts. Hinkley Point C is building 2 large EPR units totaling 3.2 gigawatts. Schedules have shifted. Current projections suggest first unit around 2030. Costs are estimated near $35 billion in 2015 prices baseline. Outturn estimates near $48 billion reflect inflation and scope progression. The strike price set was $92.50 per megawatt hour, 2012 pounds. Indexed, commentaries place it roughly around $125 per megawatt hour now. The CFD runs long, stabilizing revenue against wholesale price volatility. Workforce peaked in thousands. Logistics, quality, and safety coordination were immense. Global dependence demanded robust controls and contingency for missed milestones. Complex civil works involved dense reinforcement and demanding nuclear concrete pours. Community benefits and local hiring supported acceptance and skills pipelines. Government support underpinned financing confidence through CFD guarantees and oversight. Debates questioned value for money versus alternatives like offshore wind expansions. However, system firmness and winter resilience favor nuclear's dependable megawatts. Lessons include standardization, better sequencing, and early rigorous supplier qualification. Preparing operators early builds readiness and embeds plant-specific knowledge. Quality deviations need early capture to avoid compounding during later stages. The project illustrates how carrying costs mount with every month of delay. Sizewell C's RAB aims to reduce financing costs compared with CFD-only models. Consumer levies under RAB are forecast to be a small bill share. Yet RAB doesn't remove construction risk. Execution still determines outcomes. Main takeaway: immense patience, capital, and relentless discipline are required. So should you scale a fleet, or will that multiply problems too? Scaling promises learning curves, supplier certainty, and shorter unit build times. Standardization can reduce per-unit costs through repetition and shared expertise. Shared training centers produce operators and technicians faster and more consistently. Common spares across units cut inventory and improve outage responsiveness. Larger volume orders encourage competition and localized manufacturing investment. But a design flaw can ground multiple reactors simultaneously, slashing output. Public confidence risks become amplified when issues affect more than one site. Program control complexity rises. Governance must be exceptionally strong. Portfolio finance can spread risk and attract broader institutional capital. Frameworks with options assure volumes while keeping performance accountability. Modularization scales better with repetition, pushing complexity into controlled factories. Reusable jigs and transport frames reduce bespoke handling risks. Process metrics improve under stable designs and measured continuous improvements. However, site constraints vary. Not every place allows the same design. Policy shifts between governments complicate multi-decade investment continuity. Scaling needs parallel scaling of skills, certification, and regulator oversight capacity. Local benefits become a program pillar sustaining acceptance and resilience. Lower weighted average cost of capital amplifies viability across the fleet. Yet one disrupted hub ripples wider when everything depends on it. Your choice is between a flagship risk or a disciplined fleet strategy. Let's run numbers for a plausible successful year and a difficult one. Keep assumptions grounded, round figures, and avoid false precision where uncertain. Base assumptions next, then consequences for cash flow and debt service. Assume 3.2 gigawatts, 90% capacity, and 125 per megawatt hour revenue. That yields roughly 25.2 million megawatt hours, about 25.2 terawatt hours yearly. Revenue comes to around $3.15 billion for energy sales under indexation. Operating costs, say 25 to O&M, 12 to fuel, 7 to waste contributions. Together, that's 44 megabayas, roughly $1.11 billion operating cash costs annually. Decommissioning and waste funding are embedded here, per UK requirements. Then debt service and equity return must be paid from the remainder. $3.15 billion less. $1.11 billion leaves roughly $2 to $4 billion before financing. If financing and returns demand $1.9 billion, residual is tight but feasible. In a good year, schedules hold, outages are short, margins respectable. Now assume 80% capacity and an extended outage hitting reliability. Output falls to about 22.4 terawatt hours. Revenue near 2.8 billion. O&M per MWH rises. Absolute costs might lift toward 1.3 billion. Debt service barely flexes, shortfalls erode cash and stress covenants. You dip into reserves, defer non-critical upgrades, and renegotiate maintenance windows. Safety corners cannot be cut. Regulators will not trade safety for cash. Renegotiating spares or staging deliveries helps, but fundamentals drive outcomes. Survival rules, realistic schedules, oversized contingency, diversified suppliers, transparent culture. CFD delivers price certainty. RAB trims financing cost but involves consumers earlier. Long-term waste plans and decommissioning are national scale, funded and regulated. Verdict: worth owning for disciplined, patient capital comfortable with regulated frameworks. For first-of-a-kind designs, risks soar. Fleets reduce but cannot eliminate them. Would you still want to own it knowing the patience in billions? If you found this useful, subscribe and suggest another business to dissect.